Hello, and welcome to the virtual Henry Book Tour. So today we are going to be talking all things Henry. This is the only book tour day that I'll be doing, and I'm very excited. I have a lot to get, so I have notes put up on my computer just to make sure that I hit everything that I have to tell you guys, because I have a lot to announce. I have a lot to go over. But I'm Caden Ryan, a teenage author the teenage author who wrote Henry. And Henry is a book based off true events, but it also has some fictional elements added to it. And it's an amazing book about the Native American hero, Henry Berry Lowry. Yeah. So with COVID-19, I'm planning on doing a book signing or maybe like a one-show book tour near where I stay in my area. But due to COVID-19, I've had to bring it online, and I thought this would be the best way to do it, so everyone won't have to wear a mask. You do it in the comfort of your own home. You don't even have to get dressed to view this video. Of course, you should have some clothes on, but you don't have to, you don't even have to get out of bed to view this video. But I am very excited for this book tour, and I'm very excited. Thank you all for tuning in. This video is not live, but I will be interacting with you guys live. Down there's like a live chat box that you could type in, and yeah, I have so many things to announce in today's video, so you aren't gonna want to miss it. I do want to go ahead and say, if you haven't already read the book, then you might not want to watch this video because I may spoil a little bit of the book. I don't want to spoil too much, but I know that the paperback copies have already been shipped out to most of everyone who has ordered one in the United States, but the hardbacks, they won't be shipped until September 3rd. And when you can expect, I'm sorry y'all, I'm really nervous. This is my first ever like tour or press thing for anything that I've ever done, but you can expect your hardback on anytime before September 7th. So if you have ordered a hardback and you haven't received it, they aren't shipping until September 3rd. So the pre-book process is what I want to hit on next. This book, I've been thinking about it since 2016, and now that I've officially wrote it and put it down on paper is amazing. So I just want to bring you all through that process with me. So I began creating ideas for this book on July 2016, and I was just visualizing ideas. And then last year I was lucky enough to be casted on Strike Out the Wind, and that was one of the most historical showings of Strike Out the Wind, because they brought it back to the Cultural Center for the first time. It was a sold out show, and it was just amazing to be a part of that history. That really ignited in me the fire to that I finally needed to put this book on paper, and I'm very excited for that. So what I did was, in January of this year, I began, coming up with covers for the book and wraps of the book, the front and the back put together, and just started collecting all my ideas generally. And then in March, right before we went on lockdown, is when I actually began writing the prologue. And then what I did was, once we were in quarantine, I was able to, think a lot. I had a whole lot of time because I don't have like a job or anything like that yet. And I had a whole lot of time. So from April to July, I actually wrote the book, and it was such a fun process writing the book. This is my first ever novel. I have done 2 books in the past, but this book is definitely my favorite book out of those 2, and it will always be considered my first book to myself. But like, writing a novel is a huge accomplishment for me. So the fact that I got it written in like 3-4 months was amazing to me, after having the story in my brain for like 4 years, and finally getting it on paper was amazing. So I wrote this book to share Henry's story. Henry is my great-great-great-great-grandfather, for those of you who don't know, and I really just want his story out there. And I thought it would be a nice debut novel for myself because, like I said earlier, this is my first novel, and it's my authorial debut, and I thought this would be a nice debut novel. Just kind of as just getting my feet wet in the author community. And the reason that I wrote this book was because my first 2 books weren't really for everybody. My first book that I did, it was just like, oh, I want to write a book. It wasn't like I want to have a message or do anything like that. I just wanted to share my story, and I did a brief little autobiography called Life, and I ended up making a movie about it, which was very fun. And the process was really fun, but I don't like the book. Now that I look back on it, it was a fun summary of my life, but the book was rushed. I wrote it in like 2 days, and it only has 14 pages. So I don't enjoy the book. And then the second book was Henry and Rhoda, and that was a kid's book, so that's why I felt like it wasn't for everybody. You know, obviously most adults don't want to read kids' books. So that's why I decided to write this adult/teenager novel. And yeah, I'm very excited that I did. So in the writing of this novel, I have been involved in everything. I have helped edit the book. I wrote the book completely by myself. I did not have anybody up here writing the book with me, which is what I've been accused of in the past. I've had people tell me like, oh, your mom's helped you write the book, your dad's helped you write the book, your sister's helped you write the book. Nobody has helped me write this book. I wrote this book completely by myself. Now, my sister and one of my teachers did help me edit the book, as well as myself. My sister did it by herself, my teacher did it by herself, and then I self-edited the book and ran it through a few different applications just to make sure that it was, great. But I self-published this book and under my company, KR Incorporations, and KR Publications. I completely did everything for this book other than the editing, and I did have a part in the editing because I wanted to have some other eyes on it just to make sure that everything was okay. And I created the cover, I wrote the entire book, I put all the pages, formatted the book myself. I did everything in this novel. And to have done that at 15 is an amazing accomplishment for me. A 111-page novel is amazing, just to know that I did that. So I've been under a lot of pressure. As a matter of fact, in 2019, I was at a breaking point. I almost had a mental breakdown, but I prayed and got better in 2020. So this year I haven't pressured myself to do a lot. Like, I haven't been working on the magazine like I should. I haven't been doing videos like I should. But I have wrote this book. And this book was a lot of pressure. Just because, especially the week that the book was supposed to come out, which was August 15th, I went on vacation, which was a huge mistake. Don't ever go on vacation the week that your book's supposed to be published. But I had to end up pushing back the release date of the paperback for 2 weeks. And then the hardback's 3 weeks. So yeah, I had to end up pushing the dates back, and that was mainly because I just wanted to ensure everybody's safety, and I wanted to make sure that the book was in tip-top condition before it was published. So that's why the dates have been pushed back, but everyone who has pre-ordered, I'm pretty sure will be receiving a signed copy of the book, so that's really cool, and that's just makeup from me to you. And I have 2 different proof copies of the book. This was the first proof copy, and this is the second one. As you can see, this one has a green tint. This one is black and white completely, which is what it's intended to be. The book is a whole lot thicker. This book is a little bit thicker than this book, and this book has 20 or so more pages that I ended up adding. I added some note pages and some other things like that, and I also changed the back of the book, and this is also the unedited version of the manuscript. So this book is going to be extremely rare. There's no other printed editions of the manuscript, so that's just very fun to know that I am the only person who has this copy of the book. But the paperback and the ebook are now available. As I stated earlier, the paperback is available on Barnes & Nobles and Caden Ryan, my website, Cara Plus, and the ebook version is available on Gumroad.com, so you can go ahead and order that. So I've had a lot, throughout the writing process, I did not know how I wanted to name the book. I didn't know a whole lot. I didn't know, I had all these ideas, but I didn't know what I wanted to name, or there was just a bunch of different concepts that I had in my head. The cover, things like that. So some different names I thought about was who is Henry, what was Henry, the Native American Robin Hood, but I ended up settling on just Henry, and there's a reason for that, and the reason for that is because I just think it's such a bold statement just to have a one-word book. and I just really like that it's called Henry. I just really like that. And you know, it's supposed to create a question in somebody's mind. Like if you go to your bookstore and you see this book, you're gonna see Henry, and then you're gonna see his picture, and you're gonna be like, well, who is Henry? And it's supposed to create like an image or a question in your mind. So that's why the title is just Henry. So I have some announcements to make. The book is I'm currently working on getting the book published on Amazon and iBooks, which is Apple's ebook company. So that's very exciting, and I can't wait to release those versions of the book, because Barnes & Noble and Kate and Ryan Plus are the only places where the book is currently available. And just getting it to other platforms and things like that is really exciting for me. So I really want to explain the prologue really quick. So the prologue is all real events, everything that happened in real life. And if you look at it, the prologue, it's like 11 pages long, but it basically tells about Henry's mom, Henry's dad, Henry's upbringing, their upbringing, and it just gives you a rundown of the story, and it's all historically accurate. Everything on it, everything in the prologue is historically accurate. And then when you get to the book, most of everything is historically accurate, but I added some things for comedic relief, I added some romance edge, just things like that. And there is a notice in the book which reads, some statements made after this point in the novel are not historically accurate and is meant to be told from a creative and artistic perspective and may add fictional elements. So I just want to let you guys know why that's there. And my favorite 5 chapters. So I really wanted to tell you guys 5 of my favorite chapters, but it was so hard to have to narrow down these chapters because each chapter is almost like a child, and having to pick a favorite was almost impossible. But these are in no particular order. They're actually in the order of which they occur in the book. But one of the 5 of my favorite chapters is chapter 3 in Act 1, and it is My Snake Mill Pond. This chapter was really fun to write. It adds a lot of comedic relief, and anyone who has already read the book, you probably already know what I'm talking about. But it involves the KKK and some people dressing up, and it's very funny. But then there's also like a dark turn for the worst at the end of the chapter. So it was very fun to try to balance those and write them all in the same chapter. So then the second out of my favorite 5 chapters is chapter 6. Let's go to that. Chapter 6 is Outlaws. It's in Act 2. It's when the Lowry Gang was officially like outlaws in the South. And this chapter was just really fun to write because, you know, these characters are people in real life, but also I consider them characters in my mind, just the way that I could imagine them, you know, interacting. And seeing the way that they all reacted to them being outlaws was really fun to write. So after that, my favorite chapter is the next chapter, which is chapter 7. And chapter 7, let's go to chapter 7. Chapter 7 is called Hunting Grounds, and it's the introduction of 3 main characters in the book, which is Boss, Andrew, and Rhoda. And writing like the beginning of the romance side of the novel was really fun, and the interactions between Henry, Boss, and Andrew were really fun to write. And it's really fun. When you get to this part when you're reading, you'll understand. So the next chapter that I have is chapter 14. And chapter 14 is in Act 4, I'm pretty sure. Let's find it. I just want to go to it so that way I can show you guys the page. And they all mainly look the same, but I really like that. Where is it at? Okay, here it is. So, chapter 14 is called Swampy Wedding, and it's in Act 4. And this chapter was really emotional. It's one of the most emotional chapters. Well, it is the most emotional chapter in the book. A lot of my favorite characters die in this chapter, and it just has like, I don't know how to explain it, but there's a bunch of rewarding things that happen to the story, and then there's a bunch of sad things that happen that are very impactful to the story. But this chapter is really fun to write, and I also knew that I only have 5 chapters left to write, so I began to try to stretch it out. And this chapter I wrote over the course of a few days, and just stretching it out was really fun because I know I only have 4 more chapters to write at the time, but we'll get to that. So then my 5th and final favorite chapter, if I had to choose my top 5, would be chapter 19. And let's find it really quick. So chapter 19 wasn't originally supposed to be in the book. It was actually only supposed to be an 18 chapter book, but I ended up adding chapter 19 just because the way that chapter 18 ended, I didn't feel was a great reward for the reader who had been reading the book throughout this whole time. So that's why I ended up adding chapter 19, and chapter 19 gives us such a rewarding ending to the book. And I don't want to spoil it because it's such a good ending, and it sets up for you know what, we get into that later. But my writing style and the writing process for this book was amazing. The book just came to me. I did base it a little bit off of Strike at the Wind, but I also added my own edge and my own stories to it. And the chapters are really short. There's the shortest chapter is 2 pages, and the longest chapter is either 6 or 8 pages. And the reason for that is because I like short chapters myself, and that's why I decided to make the chapters so short in this book. But yeah, I just thought I'd let you guys know that. So I do have a very special announcement. I will be recording an audiobook version of Henry, and it will be released on Audible as well as my YouTube channel, but I'm not sure if I'm going to do it for free or if you're going to have to pay. I'll probably do it for free, but I'm not exactly sure. But I'm very excited to be narrating this because a bunch of authors write their books and then they don't narrate it. And you know, like, what the characters are feeling, how they feel, how they're interacting. And I feel like you're the best person as an author to narrate your book. So that's why I feel it's very important that I'm narrating mine, and I'm very excited to do that. And it will be available next month. I think September 15th is what we're aiming for. It may be pushed back, but just look on my social medias, which is Facebook is Caden Ryan, and that's where I post all the updates about the book. And there's also a Henry Facebook page that you can go follow. So yeah. And you may be asking yourself, you know, how many languages is the book going to be available in? So right now it's only available in English, but I am planning on adding a Spanish version to the book, just because I feel like it, and I don't know if that's for sure. I'm gonna have to talk and decide some things, but yeah, that's what I'm thinking as of now. And I did completely self-publish this book, and like I said earlier, I was involved in every process that this book underwent. So just seeing it all come together, and the way that it did come together, and the way it's an amazing book, and I don't mean to toot my own horn here, but this book is an amazing story, an amazing book, and just to have the honor and the privilege to have wrote it was amazing. Like, looking at my name right there, it's so surreal. It's crazy, and I've always had a passion for writing. I've always loved English language arts, but I do have issues with pronunciation sometimes, and yeah, but I was reading 10th grade books when I was in kindergarten, so I've always loved reading and writing, so it's not a surprise I did write a book, but this soon, it is a surprise. So I haven't done much press for the book other than my promotions on social media, but I am planning on printing out some posters and things like that, and I have been emailing news articles and different news outlets and platforms trying to get promotion for Henry, just because I want to promote this book as much as possible, and not only to get his story out there, but just to, you know, make it more well known that this book has been published. And there is a lot of books published about Henry. Well, there's like 3 or 4 that I know of, but this book is really special because it tells more of a story. The other ones are more like actual events, but this one is for entertainment. So I am planning on releasing the book on more platforms like Books A Million, and there's a few other ones that I'm planning on releasing the book on. And you may be asking, why do you have so many platforms that you're publishing on? And that's mainly because I am a self-publisher, so I have to reach out to these places personally. And the more places that the book's available, the better. So yeah. The book's merchandise, oh my gosh, I've worked on 2 merchandise collections. I'm planning on doing a 3rd one, but I'm not exactly sure. You guys have been more than supportive of these. You guys have ordered so many copies of the shirts and things like that, and I'm so incredibly grateful for that. The merchandise collection has been doing extremely well, and it will be available until, I'm thinking, probably around December. So if you haven't ordered those, go ahead and order yours. They will be available in the link down below. As well as the book, the links for Henry, they will be available in the links down below. But I just want to thank you all for all your support, your kind words, your encouragement for writing this book. There has been a few people who have reached out to me with malicious intents, such as writing the book, or they are angry that I'm publishing this book because there's a lot of controversy around this picture. I just had to bring it up. But this picture is Henry. For those of you who don't want to accept it, you don't have to. But this picture is Henry. Just letting you guys know, I'm a part of the Lowry family, and my great-grandma, who was raised by Henry's daughter, Nelia, she said that her grandmother, Nelia, told her that this was Henry from the age of 10, 11. So my great-grandma has always been told that this is Henry. And the theory is that this picture came around in the 70s, but my grandma was told that in the early 40s. So yeah, this is Henry. And I just want to thank you guys for all your support. I want to thank Barnes & Nobles, my publisher, myself for writing this book. Barnes & Nobles, like I said, they have published my book for me, and they've been amazing, but I am the self-publisher of this book. So it's just been an amazing process, and I can't wait for book number 2. And it will be out in early 2021. But I do have one more announcement that I have to make. And that is Henry will be getting a sequel. There will be a follow-up novel to Henry. I cannot confirm that there will be a third one. But the ending, you'll understand like once you read the ending. Or maybe you won't, because it sort of has an ambiguous ending. But Henry number 2 will be coming out soon. Certainly not this year, certainly not the beginning of next year, but maybe after my second book has been published. This Henry's the sequel will be my 3rd book, but I'm very excited for that because right now there's so many titles, so many different concepts, because the story ends in such a way like there's so many different ways I could go about a sequel, but I don't know how I'm gonna do that yet. So as soon as I get started on that, I will update you guys. And yeah, I think that's it. That's all for today's virtual book tour. I thank you all for all your support. You can pre-order the book down below, as well as the book's merch. And I can't wait to, continue promoting Henry and things like that. So until next time, bye y'all.